Hello, and welcome to Transformed. I'm your host, Josh McMullen, where we will discuss and explore topics and ideas on how to transform our current lives and be the person we need to be and the person God created us to be. Today's episode, I want to talk about one of the books that I've read that's helped me transform. I know I've kind of done that in the past a couple times, and I just really think really pulling from other people's transformations is really key, especially if they're book or podcast forms. I highly recommend getting into some version of reading or some version of listening to somebody who has done a transformation. You can just learn a lot. So today, the book that really helped me transform is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. So kind of a preface here real quick. I want to be clear. This book is, especially if you're a Christian, right? This is not going to be an easy read. It's from a Navy SEAL. It is a vulgar book. It's written by a Navy SEAL, right? So it's going to be a little tougher. But it is packed full of amazing content that helped this person not only transform physically, but really even, more so transform mentally as well. And there's so many challenges that he provides. There's so many great points to transformation and how, really we keep stopping ourselves. So what I want to do today is kind of go over the summary of the book, but also hit a little bit of his background and then hit on some of his challenges that he provides throughout the book, and just kind of give a little bit of notes on those on our transformation. Again, it's Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'll throw a link into the Amazon for the show, in the show notes. All right, so Can't Hurt Me is about David Goggins, right? How he transformed himself into one of America's fittest athletes through self-discipline, mental toughness, and hard work. That's really like if you have to narrow it down into one sentence, right, that's really what the book is about. Kind of why I'm recommending it. Again, it's a tough book. It's not, if you're sensitive to certain things, like I said, language for one, it's probably not for you. It's really just a full honesty. If you're also like making excuses for yourself, this book is not for you. It cuts out all excuses. It really does. And I think that's why I like it the most, is it cuts out all your excuses. There is no excuse that you can give for why you're overweight, why you're not educated, why you're not really anything, right? Because this guy's lived a life to where he had to overcome what those excuses would be. So it doesn't hold back, right? It doesn't allow for those excuses. He's a Navy SEAL. He's one of the toughest people alive. So he I think just through his upbringing, his personal life, his childhood, he just doesn't allow for excuses, and that's what I love, and that's why I think. So again, if you're not really wanting to change, if you're kind of just dipping your toe in the water of change, and you don't like tough language, this book isn't for you. But if you can endure the tough language, if you can endure, the no excuse mindset, right, then absolutely, I totally think this book would benefit you if you're actually wanting to gear up and change. Because that's really what happened for me, is that this book really kicked me into gear about pushing myself further and harder. I think I read this book October of last year, so October 2020. And, I was kind of, pitter-pattering and running, a couple miles here and there. I think I was finally getting up to like a 5K. So I was like really proud of that. And reading this book, it was one of those that, it really, as you're listening, I did the audiobook version, which is, I highly recommend that, because they kind of do this really cool thing with the audiobook where in between chapters, basically it's like a ghostwriter, somebody who actually helped him write it. They would sit there, and him and David Goggins would actually kind of like recap the chapter and talk about it, and he would give you some extra content. The writer asks some extra questions. So it's really, highly recommend the audiobook version. You get a lot more information, a lot more kind of detail and background. And, I would really just listening to that, and you're kind of all of a sudden, you're trying to push yourself a little bit further. You're running a little bit further. You're trying a little bit harder because, again, because it kicks you into that gear. It tells you, and what he tells you throughout the book is that, our bodies and minds can handle so much more than what we think. Right, we actually kind of put one of the chapters is like a governor. We kind of in our heads have like a governor of our limits of what we can handle and what we can take and what we can actually try. And so that's really the whole story of David Goggins, is him continuing to push those boundaries, showing and revealing his experiences with pain, trauma, and obstacles, and how just through sheer mental toughness and grit, he overcame so many obstacles, whether, again, if it's his past, his childhood growing up, whether it's, injuries and going through SEALs training, his lack of education. So it was just one obstacle was because of the trauma in his childhood. It was tough for him to learn. He got some learning disabilities, or at least fell behind learning. Maybe not learning disabilities. Maybe he just fell behind. So graduating high school was a big accomplishment. And it goes over, getting into the Air Force, and then he gained some weight. But then, he felt really passionate about becoming a Navy SEAL, and so within a few months, he loses 106 pounds, gets a high score on the ASVAB, which is basically like the SAT to get into the military, and then he gets into the SEALs. He goes through BUD training and Ranger School and becomes an ultra marathon runner, which again, those are those. I don't know how in the world I think running a marathon is a phenomenal a human feat. But ultramarathon, you're running these 100 and 150, 200 mile races, and it's just, and some of the most extreme conditions too. It's not even just you're going to the gym and running 200 miles or 100 miles, which is ridiculous. They're running it through the snow or running it through the desert, and it's adds just an extra layer. So, again, a lot of obstacles, right? And a lot of injuries, and overcoming those injuries through, again, mental toughness and just sheer grit. And so that's why he has so many obstacles that he could just say, hey, I got those excuses, I'm not going to do them. Hey, I had trauma in my life, I'm going to just pack it up. Hey, I wasn't raised in a certain way. Hey, I was a black kid in Indiana, and I experienced racism. Right? He could have used any one of these obstacles, any one of these excuses. Hey, I'm overweight, I can't make it in the SEAL training. Hey, I'm not that good at reading. Hey, I'm not that good at swimming. Hey, I'm not that good at whatever excuse that he could have gave. He actually could have given it and could have gotten away with it, and probably could have went the rest of his life just fine. And he didn't. He didn't give any of those excuses. And I didn't have this in my notes, but I love this from the book. And it, not really scripture, but I mean, I do like the idea of it, where he said he had a dream where he's getting into heaven and he's in line for judgment. But instead of judgment being of your sins, it was judgment of how you didn't live up to how God created you. And I really, again, I love that whole imagery. And he says he gets up there, and he's the overweight version of himself that didn't do any of these challenges. And God, had it on his list. He gets up there that David Goggins should have been this Army Ranger and Navy SEAL, and should have done all these ultra marathon races and got the pull-up record, world pull-up record, and all these crazy stuff. And how he didn't live up to that. And I just think that's a lot of us and again, that's probably the whole point of my podcast, is how so many of us don't transform. So many of us don't change, and don't even try to be the person God created us to be, because we take some of those excuses and we just write out the rest of our life. Well, this happened to me, or I'm this, or I can't do that, and we just sit back and we coast, and we don't try to change. So I think if you're really wanting that like I said, kick in the butt to kind of transform, definitely this is the one. This is the book for you to really kind of help you remove some of those excuses. And as I mentioned earlier, he also presents several challenges to readers, to people wanting to change, that are helpful to anyone trying, whether whether that's trying to lose weight, whether that's getting your promotion, whether that's changing your life, changing your excuses, changing your mindset. Some of these challenges are great, and very applicable to any situation. That's what's great about it, is it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. Again, whether it's graduate school or lose weight, these are very applicable. So his first challenge is inventory of excuses. Basically, it's just knowing what excuses you're going to have, right? What obstacles, take inventory of your past and how you can prepare to overcome it. And I've talked about this before in the podcast where some of our transformation can be very emotional. And I think it's because we all have the past. We all have like an inventory of things that we can use as excuses that are going to pop up in our head, or whether that is traumatic experiences or whether that's just whatever's sitting under the surface and boiling. If you try to change, those things typically come to the surface. And so I think the taking inventory of excuses and obstacles is a great way to, when you're trying to start transformation, is to kind of have that inventory available of what can pop up, what can be there, and that way you can kind of prepare to overcome it. His second challenge was the accountability mirror. Basically, he started this in high school where he would have like a checklist of daily goals, but he would put like on sticky notes and put them on the mirror, and he does it to this day where whatever he's wanting to accomplish, he puts it up on the mirror and he takes it down when he accomplishes it. Whether it's like, hey, I got to lose 40 pounds. Well, on your sticky mirror, you're going to say, I want to lose 2 pounds this week, right? And you're going to put that up on the mirror. And I'm going to read a book, or whatever your goals are, your daily goals are. Put them up on the mirror and accomplish them. Weekly goals, daily goals, accomplish those goals and then take them down and then just keep adding to it. Okay, hey, I'm going to lose 2 to 5 pounds. Hey, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Hey, I'm going to, I'm going to study towards the SAT. I'm going to, put an application in for grad school. Whatever your path is, put a sticky note up on there. That way it keeps you accountable. His third challenge, there's 10 of them, by the way. His third challenge is to step outside of your comfort zone, right? Growth is outside the comfort zone. And that's really in any of our lives, right? The more we grow, the more we challenge ourselves. When we do something that we don't like no one likes exercise. I mean, if you do like exercise, it's what's easier, what's better, right? What's inside the comfort zone is just relaxing and maybe just sitting down and having a glass of sweet tea or some Oreos, right? Like, that's the comfort zone. Stepping outside of the comfort zone would be the exercise and the dieting or going to school and reading books, right? That's where the growth is challenging ourselves and continuing to grow and improve, which he kind of gets into this. It develops a calloused mind where we can, the more we challenge ourselves, the more calloused our minds get, and we can overcome other obstacles. Whether that's, you're trying to prevent some bad habits, right? You overcome some small bad habits, then you could eventually overcome the big habits because, again, you've got that calloused mind, that muscle that's able to kind of get self-control, right, to overcome some of those obstacles. Challenge 4 is taking souls. It's a really interesting chapter, and it's a really interesting challenge, which essentially taking souls is his way to crush the standard, right? Work hard, crush the standard. If you're competing for a job promotion, his way is, taking the soul would be to work hard and improve, your standard of work, and basically kind of make your leaders take notice of you. If maybe you're not number one in line for the promotion, but through your hard work, through your improvement, maybe next thing you know, you kind of capture their attention and you become the number one person, right? You kind of take their soul is his way of saying, is kind of steal, the power in a way. It's kind of the shift of power, or instead of, maybe you're behind, maybe now through your hard work and, again, crushing that standard, now maybe you're pushed forward, and maybe you're going to get the promotion. Maybe you're, maybe you're going to, I don't know. His example was a lot with the promotions and stuff like that, and working hard. And his specific on how he took souls was when he was going through SEALs training, how they were trying to crush you down through, basically a lot of torture and torment with, swimming in the ocean, kind of freezing you to death, and how he didn't allow any of that to get to him, and how he actually kept up and kind of flipped the script and really kind of enjoyed it. And that kind of got to the instructors where they kind of left him alone because they knew whatever punishment they were going to deal out to him, he was actually going to excel through that punishment and kind of, again, take their soul in a way. So Essentially, it's work